All right, hello guys, we're back again. It's a new day on my side, and waking up early here with a good cup of coffee and getting ready to make some more tutorial videos for you. So, okay, I've just opened Rhino for the first time. It's the beginning of the day, like I mentioned, and as usual, Rhino has gone ahead and just opened up a blank document for me to work on, and I'm tempted to just start from here. But I remember that in our last video, we were working on something kind of specific. We were drawing some squiggly lines. It was kind of a big deal. So I want to go down here and I want to go to open, or I can go to help about Rhino to bring up that splash screen that I talked about, and then I can go and find the file that we were working on previously, and it was called name. Remember this? Here we are. So in our last video, we were just exploring the 3D space using the right mouse key. We were moving around in 3D for the first time. We were having fun. We were playing around with this gumball thingy and just learning how that works a little bit, playing around with scale, you know. I mean, we were really getting somewhere. So I want to continue with that. So I'm going to just work here in the 4-view panel, or 4-panel view for a second, and I'll talk to you a little bit about how to edit some of these curves that we drew yesterday. So, I mean, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete some of the lines that I don't like. So this one that I've pulled up into space, I'm kind of over that one. So I just want to hit delete and delete that. And I'm mentioning that because I want you to hit the delete key and not the backspace key, okay? Most of the time, you know, if you're using Word or whatever, you're writing an email, you're going to hit backspace, but in CAD, you're hitting the delete key. So there's that. All right. Okay. Then I want to just probably draw some more line work and talk to you a little bit about how you can trim pieces of line work together, and then just kind of go into a little bit more detail about what's going on with this Polyline tool, okay? Because the Polyline tool, if I click and hold and open up the line toolbar, the Polyline tool is actually an extension of the line tool. Polyline means multiple, so it's drawing multiple lines. Okay, there is the line tool, which is just where you drop 2 points and it puts a line between the two. The Polyline tool, you drop multiple points and it connects them all. Okay, and the way that the Polyline tool works is that you can kind of lay some multiple lines over each other. Okay, and then when you're finished, you can hit enter and it's gonna be finished. Right, it'll leave that piece of line work behind. Okay, now if you want to trim that line work together, you can do that. Anyway, the line that is left behind is kind of all one unit. Okay, there's also the idea of drawing kind of one separate line like that, and then drawing another polyline off of that, okay, like this, and wanting to kind of trim them together into one. All right, and so we want to do something like that. We can use a tool called join, and there's also a tool here called trim. Okay, so with the trim tool, let's try that first. Let's just trim some lines together. I'm going to turn on trim, and it says select cutting object. So I'm going to select this guy, and then it says press enter when you're done. I'll hit enter, and then I can trim off the little edges of this line work here. Okay, and then I'll hit escape to kind of drop that tool. I'll turn on trim again, and this time I'm going to turn on this as the cutting object. Okay, and I'm going to trim the edges here. Okay, hit escape to drop the tool. Again, I'll hit the trim tool, and this time I'm going to use this as the trim, and I'm just going to very simply trim off these little tails just like that. Okay, so now the difference between the Polyline tool and what we just made here, with the Polyline tool you can draw a complex shape like this and it shows up as one whole unit. But once you start trimming curves together, you notice they show up as 3 separate things. Okay, now you can use this button here, it looks like a little puzzle piece, to join these pieces together. And you can see here that was very quick, so pay attention to what's going on here. I turned on the join tool, I clicked the 3 pieces of line work, and it says 3 curves joined into one closed section. Okay, and now you can see that that's one whole unit. Okay, so that's really powerful. Okay, with the Polyline tool, you get the luxury of everything shows up as one unit altogether, but you can take a polyline or a collection of joined curves and break them apart into separate curves. And the way that you do that is with this explode button right here. Explode. See that? Looks like a boom. So I think what I'll do is, yeah, who cares? Let's do either one. Okay. When I turn the tool on, I click on the button, I look at the command line, it says select objects to explode. I can hit the polyline and go okay. Look at the command line again to see if it worked. It says exploded the curve into 13 segments. Okay. Now when I click on that thing, you can see that these are all separate little buttons. Or sorry, separate little curves. Sorry guys, it's early. More coffee should help. Okay, there we go. So now we got a bunch of little separate curves here. Okay, we can do the same thing with this one if we want. We select the closed polyline there, hit explode, take a look at the command line to confirm it worked, and now it has really exploded it into all these little segments. Okay, and this can be helpful. You can take a little segment off of here if you want, move these apart, you know, do a little exploded view on your line work. If you go too far and you need to undo your work, it's Control Z to undo. So you just hold Control with your pinky and tap that Z button to get back to where you started. Okay. Okay, cool. Perfect. And then you can watch the command line here to make sure that you undo enough. This is one of the luxuries of Rhino that you don't get in other programs, right? Look at, I go undo, undo, undo. Finally, I get to the part where it says explode. I undo the explode, and now I know my curve's back to a single, what they call a polyline. So, okay. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and trim this curve together. So I'm going to use those two as my cutting objects, and then I'm going to trim out these little bits. Okay, that's that, and I'll hit escape. And this time, instead of reaching over here to grab the trim tool, I'm gonna give you guys a super pro tip here. If you are just hovering in your work area and you just hit the right mouse button after using a tool, any tool, you will call up that tool again and apply that tool again. So watch the command line as I just hit the right mouse button. Select cutting objects, which implies and shows in the command line you just turned on trim. Now go ahead and trim. So it saves me the trouble of having to pull my mouse all the way over here and selecting the same tool. If I'm using the same tool over and over and over again, Rhino will recognize that, and it will kind of load my cursor with that tool after using it a few times, and then I can just hit the right mouse button and it'll pop it right back into place. Okay, so cutting objects again, I'm going to select this and this as my cutting objects. Okay, and then I'm going to trim off these little bits like that. Okay, and then I can hit escape and then right mouse button to load trim again. This time I'm going to go like that and like this and maybe like this and like this. And let's see. Let's just take that for now. Those are cutting objects, and I'm going to trim this and this and this and this, and there you go, like that. Oh, we'll get rid of that too, and we'll get rid of this too, and then escape and right mouse button. These will be my final cutting objects, and and there you go. Okay, so I finally trimmed that into what they call a closed poly surface. This is a closed loop is what they call that. So when you have no external interior edges and you have just a clean outline of a form, that's a closed loop. Okay, and it'll come into play later on when we get into just selecting edges and stuff like that. And there'll be a command we're going to play around with a lot called chain edges, which will collect collect the edge of a surface that's a closed loop like this. Anyway, so we've trimmed this whole messy polyline together, and now in what we want to do is just test and make sure that it's all separate units. Okay, and it is, so we're going to join it all together. We'll use the join button, and I want to draw a box around it. It's not working. Hold on. Escape to drop the tool. Select all the polylines in the mix. Hit the join key, and then it'll join them all together. Okay, so hey, like I said, you know, we're all learning here. So select the polylines you want to join first, and then hit the join button. There you go. If you turn join on first and try to select them after the fact, it doesn't work. So, okay, now we got one closed loop, and we are all set with that, and we are prepared now to finally we can use this for like an extrusion or to do a loft or do a bunch of different stuff. But having a closed loop is a really good deal. Okay, this line work down here, who knows what we can do with this. We're creeping up on 10 minutes, so I kind of want to shut it down. There was one bit where one thing I wanted to talk about, which is just edit points. I kept talking to you about how do we edit a line that we've already drawn. Right now we can move it around in 3D space, but can we edit it? Can we change the look of these lines? And you can. It's down here with this button right here, points on. So I'm going to click this set of line work. I'm going to go down here to this button here. I'm going to turn the points on, and then I can select these. These are called CVs, or edit points, and they are how you're going to edit your NURBS curves in Rhino. So what I kind of want to do is overlap some of them and show you this thing that kept popping up while I was doing the other thing. There, let me just overlap a bunch of stuff here to show you this one thing before we shut this video down. Okay. So this thing, this selection menu, I like this because it's similar to something that you have in SolidWorks that's also called Selection Manager. And what this is a menu that pops up when you have many objects that are stacked on top of each other, and you have loosely clicked over the many things, and this is Rhino trying to ask you, hey, what thing do you want me to select here? And as you see, as I roll my mouse over the various things, it highlights those various things. It can't really determine what I want to pick. So if I want to pick this point, that's one thing. There's another point there. There's another 2 points there. So if you see this thing pop up, it means you have multiple things stacked on top of each other. Okay. This can happen when sometimes you cut and paste an item. See, I just did a cut and paste. Look at my command manager. I used the hotkeys Control-C, Control-V, and I cut and pasted this curve onto itself, right where it lands. And you can see copy to clipboard and then paste. Now when I click on this curve, I get the selection manager that pops up and says, hey, dude, you have 2 curves there. Which one do you want? So this can be helpful to keep yourself clean and make sure that you don't have duplicates floating around in your file, because that can cause you trouble later on. It's just annoying, really. So if you see that you've got duplicates of the same curve and you don't want them, select one of the 2, hit the delete key, double check by clicking back on the curve, and if you don't see the selection manager pop up, you know you're good. Okay? Okay, that's a lot. I mean, we got edit points, we've got join, we've got trim, we've got explode. This was a good video. Kind of a long one again, but still a good video. Oh, last thing. How do you turn these points off, right? That can be tricky. Hover your mouse over the points on tool, and you'll notice there's another option for the right mouse button, which is points off. Okay. So just go like that, hit points off. All right. And there are some hotkeys for points on and points off, but for now, let's just use the button. Okay. All right. Hey, thanks a lot for watching. In our next video, we're going to keep talking about all of this stuff. We got so much more to cover. We still haven't even drawn any curves yet. I mean, when we get into curves, there's going to be more trimming, more joining, more exploding. But we are, we have to talk about mirrors too. I mean, we got a lot to cover, but we're racing towards the finish line here. And before you know it, we're going to start building some actual surfaces, which are all these blue tools here. Okay, these are all of our surfacing tools, and we're going to get there before you know it. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.